Hey everyone, Chad here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to be addressing one of the biggest questions that I get asked a lot in my certification journey, and that question is how do you lab for these exams? What do you need to lab for some of these exams? And I just want to at least make a hopefully pretty relevant and quick video addressing that question. So this video is going to solely focus on how I prepare for exams, specifically labs, but this can also be applied to learning new protocols, exploration, and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get started with today's video. So I'd first like to start by saying it really depends. So a lot of people on my CCNP videos will ask, well, what do I need to lab? And some of the CCNA videos that I've done, they will also ask the same question, well, what do I need to lab? So let's start off by just quickly exploring what I would suggest, at least for some of those exams, and specifically what you need to lab for some of those exams. So we're going to head over here to Cisco.com, and in here what we're looking for is our exam specifically that we're studying for. So if you go from the training and certifications and then exams, you're going to look to find the exam that you're studying for. So in my case, I'm just looking at the Encore exam here, and what I want to do is scroll down and I want to view the exam topics. And now this sounds kind of cliche, it sounds kind of obvious in the same sense, but you want to really familiarize yourself with the exam topics for whatever it is that you're going for. And I just want to quickly explain some of the verbiage here. So if we look at some of this, if I were to be labbing for this, I can see here that I need to explain the different, describe, explain, interpret. So these aren't really things that I would be configuring in the exam, but it would be things that I need to at least know how it functions. So I'm not saying to get better understanding of those topics that you certainly don't need to lab those topics. But what I am saying is if it asks you to explain or describe, it's pretty safe to assume that you're not going to see that on the exam as far as a configuration is concerned. But if we head down here, we'll just go into layer 2 or the infrastructure surface for layer 2. I can see here troubleshoot. These would be things that you would want to lab. Even though it doesn't say that you're configuring those things, we are troubleshooting those things, and I really feel like the only way that you can know how to troubleshoot something effectively and efficiently is to lab it first. So in this case, I can see I need to troubleshoot static and dynamic 802.1q trunking protocols, troubleshoot static and dynamic ether channels. So in my case, what I would suggest for this section here, and especially with this one, configure, because that's telling us that this is something that we could potentially have to configure in the exam. Essentially what I want to do is I want to go in and create layer 2 scenarios and lab them. So if we just go to Google, what we can do is we can type in this network topology layer 2, and maybe you can get pretty creative and create some of these yourself. But if you're looking for a little guidance, what I've always done is just go look for inspiration. So in my head, I may be able to design, a quick little lab, but it also helps to see what others have done. So what I did was I quickly came over here and searched up this network topology layer 2, and if we come over here and click, I can see this one here looks pretty good. So we have a distribution and access and what I assume would be like a side edge or core, and I can see this user has quite a bit of options here. So with this, I could learn that configure spanning tree pretty quickly. I could then play around with the flavors of spanning tree, whether I'm doing rapid or MST. I can really get kind of creative. There's also opportunities here to add other links between the distribution layer to play around with ether channels, and really start learning those. That's one example of the way that I've always done it, is really take a dive into the exam topics, look for the things that say troubleshoot or configure, and really work on those. And again, I'm not saying for the ones that say describe that you shouldn't lab those. If it's something that if somebody were to come up and ask you, in this case, we'll just say describe layer 1 concepts, if you can't really talk that through to yourself, how would you feel if someone else came up to you and asked you to explain that? So if you kind of are fumbling with that, I would say maybe lab those scenarios as you can. But for some things, it's going to be really hard to lab, especially like if you don't have wireless LAN controllers or anything like that. So really pay attention to the verbiage of the exam topic, specifically if it says configure or troubleshoot. Another thing I wanted to show you is some of the tools that you have at your disposal. And I really want to kind of touch on some of these specifically. EVE-NG, Cisco Packet Tracer, Cisco Modeling Labs, and GNS3. Now these are kind of the main ones that you have. And most everyone, if you're in networking, maybe you're new to networking, maybe you're not. These are the ones that most people are aware of and know. But while these are the ones that most people are aware of and know, it can be kind of confusing, especially if you are very new to networking. Maybe you're going after your CCNA for the first time. Really picking an option that works best for that exam is kind of confusing. At least it was for me. So we'll start with just some of your options. We have EVE-NG here. And EVE-NG is a product that's constantly being supported and upgraded. But this is really a self-hosted option if you want to set up your own emulated network environment. And so with this one, you will have to go out and get your own images, which can be a huge caveat for most people as you're getting started. It does have a few built-in images. It's been forever since I've used EVE-NG, but it does have a few built-in images, but it doesn't have a lot of Cisco devices. So if you're going after a Cisco certification, that may be a non-starter for you. Another option is Cisco Packet Tracer. Now, Cisco Packet Tracer is probably the option that most people are aware of, and honestly, it got me through pretty much my Cisco CCNA exam, and it got me through my CCNP exam for the most part. And really, if you're looking at Cisco Packet Tracer, it is one of the best options in my opinion, because it works on so many platforms. It's so easy to get started with, and it's really a great option for someone that is very new or someone who is just getting started. And it also has everything that you need already built into it. So you don't have to go searching for devices. You don't have to go searching for anything. Really, everything you will need is already there. And now this is probably my favorite option, and that is Cisco CML. It's got an upgraded interface. It's got everything that you need to get started. It's got all of the images that you'll probably want, and you can go out and get even more. Now, Cisco Modeling Labs, in comparison to Cisco Packet Tracer and EVE-NG, does have a limitation in that it does cost money. EVE-NG does have a paid option. Cisco Packet Tracer is completely free, but CML does have a new, recently free option, and in that, I believe it has a 5-node limitation, which doesn't sound great, but when you're starting off either with your CCNA or your CCNP and you're making topologies that are new to you for the first time, you'll understand quickly that 5 nodes is pretty efficient, especially if you want to build kind of like a 3-tier hierarchy. That's really all you need is 5 nodes. And the final option, GNS3. GNS3 is another great option. In my opinion, it was really before, I guess my transition was I started with Packet Tracer. I moved on to GNS3. I moved on to EVE-NG, and then I moved on to Cisco Modeling Labs, where I've kind of settled. But GNS3 is another great option if you want kind of everything running on one system. So maybe you have a pretty beefy PC or something, desktop. You can certainly use GNS3 to host everything on one system, which is what's great about it. It does, require a good bit of resources, but it does have an application that you can download to build an interface with your lab, as well as a web GUI. So that is another thing. It's really dependent on how you want to access some of this too. So if you're looking for like an application based system that you can just run it, GNS3 and and Packet Tracer are both kind of your options there. Versus if you're looking for more of just a web GUI, EVE-NG and Cisco Modeling Labs are going to be your two go-tos for web GUIs. Now GNS3, if I remember correctly, does have the option to have an HTML web GUI. At least back in the day when the last time I used it, it wasn't as functional as using the desktop application, so keep that in mind. That may not be as accurate anymore. They may have, I'm sure they've done updates on it in the more recent times, but really what I'm trying to get at is one size does not fit all in this realm. So each of them kind of have their own perks. So you really have to play around with what you have. So maybe you have a server and you can afford, resource wise to host something like EVE-NG or Cisco Modeling Labs, then by all means, those are probably your best options. Versus if you're looking at something that's not as resource intense and something that can just be downloaded and get you started right away, Cisco Packet Tracer is probably your best option. If you're really looking for the best of everything, GNS3 may be your option. So really it just depends. I would encourage you to play around. And kind of wrapping all this up, my final thoughts on this is I encourage you to check out Cisco's documentation for some of the topics that you're studying, because a lot of times they will have configuration in there. So if you come on and you're studying like BGP as an example, and you go to the docs white papers on BGP and they have configuration examples, follow along with that inside of your lab. Another also topic, or another point I should say, that kind of resonates with me when I first started learning for some of my certifications is that I would also build kind of imaginary scenarios, and this could really be used in real world examples. So I used to manage the network for a local company, and when I managed that network, when I was learning especially, I would basically replicate that environment. So let's say you work for a Soho or something, a small home office or whatever it is that you do. Maybe you work at a headquarters for a company, and there's 30 users over in this section, there's 100 users over here, and maybe you have some of those aspects in knowing and in mind. And what I would do is I would take that knowledge and I would kind of mesh it together. And so I would basically go inside of whatever tool that I had and I would design a network that supported that. So maybe that like with your company, or maybe you don't know, maybe you're like in your head, well, if I was going to be designing a network and deploying a network for somebody that was brand new, maybe someone came up to you and said, I've got 50 users, I need printers, phones, I've got some servers, I've got, file servers and stuff that everyone needs access to, etc. And that was kind of how I played in my mind some of those things. And then I would go in whatever tool I had, specifically Packet Tracer when I first started, and I would just build those scenarios out. And I remember for my CCNA, I actually labbed for my CCNA quite a bit more than I did my CCNP as I was getting started, because I got so excited in getting in some of these tools and building out networks. Now I have to admit, it's been a while since I've been on YouTube, and I do want to sincerely thank everybody who's stuck around with me. My brain's kind of been scattered throughout this video, so this may not come out the way that it's intended, but I do really hope that someone out there views this and kind of gets a better understanding. And again, this is at least the way that I've always prepared for exams, specifically labbing. This is how I kind of build my labs for learning and training. So I really do hope I get the point across in this video, and I really hope that you learn something. So again, I would like to thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I can't wait to see you again. Bye, guys.